we're going to play a little game, and I'm going to make you a role that I know you're not comfortable with, but I'm going to have you be my bad guy. And we're going to walk through the common steps that the bad guys might walk through to actually infiltrate an organization.
Oh my goodness, I'm nervous. I'm literally sweating.
I'm getting chills already.
I spend my entire career trying to be the good guy, and you're going to make me the bad guy.
Yeah, it's going to be a stretch for you, but I know you can do it because you have the knowledge of what those bad guys
For the
are
good
doing.
of our community, I'm going to take one for the team.
If you're making technology decisions that impact people, budgets, and outcomes, you're in the right place. Welcome to Insight On, the podcast for leaders who need technology to deliver real results. No fluff, no filler, just the insight you need before your next big decision. Hi, I'm your host, Jillian Viner, and today we're talking to Insight's CISO, Jeremy Nelson, on the frightening and easy ways that threat actors are infiltrating your business. Let's get to it. Well, Jeremy, it's October, finally, getting some cooler weather here in Phoenix.
Needed. Desperately.
Are you a big Halloween fan? Do you watch horror movies? You go trick-or-treating with the kids? Well, your kids are grown now.
Horror movies, down on those. But actually, Halloween is huge in our neighborhood.
Yeah?
In fact, so we've got this little rectangle where our house is. We kind of sit on the corner of this really cool rectangular collection of houses. And I don't know how it happened, but just over time as we've moved in, so we've been in this house for 20 years now. Mm-hmm. And this neighborhood has embraced Halloween to the point where we got people who do cotton candy. We got boiled dogs. We've got pulled pork sandwiches. We do like a big movie screen, and we'll play Nightmare Before Christmas. And we get thousands of people will come through our neighborhood on Halloween.
That's so charming. I feel like that's like
awesome.
Dying in America.
It really is,
nice
but
to
it's
hear.
not in our neighborhood.
That's
not
awesome.
in our neighborhood.
That's awesome. Okay, so trick-or-treating with the kids, Halloween block party. Okay, so you don't do horror movies. What about like thriller movies? You like thrillers?
I don't like thrillers.
Okay.
I like I do a drama here and there, but when you think about the work that I do,
Yeah.
I tend to lean on the lighter side of media that I consume. So I'm a big, stupid comedy guy.
You don't need any more reasons
That's my outlet.
to not sleep well at night.
I got plenty of other stuff to keep me anxious and up at night.
Yeah. Well, we're going to try to go through some things today to prevent some CISO nightmares.
Yep.
And help you all sleep a little bit easier. Last time you were here, you dropped this really, I won't call it a bombshell because we talked about this as being like, of course this is happening. But you mentioned that when an attack happens and you go into that war room where that's where the mitigation starts, that's where your resources, everybody kind of takes a breath and go, okay, what do we have to do? And that's when you realize that, oh, we're not safe here. There is an infiltration happening in the war room. The war room has been compromised.
The call is coming from inside the house.
There you go. So
There you go, back to your horror.
Well, you can't say that and then not revisit that topic and help us understand how did we get there and how do we keep that from happening. So, Jeremy, I'm really excited for our conversation today. We are going to play a little game, and I'm going to make you a role that I know you're not comfortable with, but I'm going to have you be my bad guy. And we're going to walk through the common steps that the bad guys might walk through to actually infiltrate an organization. So we're going to take this from the very beginning steps all the way up to the moment of, oh no, there's a problem. And then we're going to have to come back for another conversation to figure out how to get out of that scenario.
Oh my goodness, I'm nervous. I'm literally sweating.
I'm getting chills already.
I spend my entire career trying to be the good guy, and you're going to make me the bad guy.
Yeah, it's going to be a stretch for you, but I know you can do it because you have the knowledge of what those bad guys
For the
are
good of
doing.
our community, I'm going to take one for the team.
Thank you. Let's do it. You're going to be the bad guy.
All right.
Do you have a name for your black hat?
I don't, and maybe that's a good sign. Let's go with the Black Serpents.
Oh, okay. We're going there. All right, Black Serpents. I'm going to be the CEO of Bear Solutions. Sounds tough, right?
No, very tough.
You're not going to get through
No way.
No, it's not going to happen. So, all right, first move. This is like the chessboard's on the table, right? Pawns are out. What do you do?
So, coming back to you asked about horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing I am a big fan of is I love heist movies.
Same.
So there was, I think, one of the greatest genres ever invented, in my opinion. It was funny. We were just kind of think about good guy, bad guy. We'll kind of toss that aside in the spirit of the Heist movie because I think that gets a little bit murky. But really, if you go back, they serve as kind of like a blueprint for this exercise that we're going to be going through today. And so I think if you look at a lot of those movies, Ocean's 11, by the way, happens to be my favorite. And it always starts off with reconnaissance.
Yeah.
Just understanding, who is this? Like, who is it that we're potentially targeting? And there's a lot of different components to that. So everything from, is this a target that's going to have a propensity to pay? Do they have the financials to give me something that is material and worth that time and investment that I'll be putting into them? And then understanding, who are the players? Who are the major players that I'm working with? And what are the ways that they might have weaknesses or exposures that I can use that as a means to be able to kind of execute my infiltration activities? So that's the first thing. And let's just face it, in the post-2005 era, right? Everyone knows what happens in 2005. Do you know what happened in 2005?
I mean, I was there, but what was the big thing?
Facebook came out. Facebook became public, accessible social media. So social media, so we had MySpace, we had Facebook, and MySpace was a thing, but we really didn't see the expanse of social media until really Facebook kind of took over. Twitter was there in the background. But now, part of just everyday life is social media. Yeah. And so
you didn't even mention LinkedIn. That's where we're all on.
We're all on it.
Yeah.
Like if you go through, there are very few people that aren't on any type of a social media platform. But there is some digital footprint that everyone leaves behind through social media. So the first thing you do is, when you talk about social media, you're looking to investigate an organization specifically. Where would you think about starting?
I mean, if you're looking for the players, you're probably perusing those social platforms, and you're going to come on my page and see my title, who I engage with, who am I
LinkedIn's a great place to start.
Yeah.
You literally, the company will usually have a page, and that page will usually have connections to the officers of the company. It'll tell their title. It'll tell a little bit about their mission statement. So you actually learn a little bit about like, what are the underpinnings, maybe what does the lexicon and communication language of that organization look like based off of the vertical and some of the things that they share on social media. So you can kind of get like a feel for the tone. AI actually even makes this easier. Now you can go out, type it into AI and be like, hey, can you do a little bit of research on this company? I'm trying to craft a communication. Can you give me something that would mirror their tone, the way that they communicate? What are their values and things like that?
Very innocent prompt, so it has
very
no
innocent
idea
prompt. Because you could just be somebody who's looking to engage with them, to create a partnership, to either help them or to help potentially position a product that you've developed. And so it's a very innocent prompt. But under the covers, really, what are you trying to do? You're trying to immediately start to impersonate a persona that exists within that organization.
You could, in theory, scrape all of my LinkedIn posts. Maybe you find a Facebook page, whatever, and you're aggregating all that to understand my voice and tone.
100%.
And now you have my writing
style.
Well,
I'll even take it one step further. For you specifically, as the host of Inside On,
my voice is out there.
Your voice, your face. Like you're not just a voice and tone as far as like communication style, but like literally you have enough content out there to directly replicate you.
But most CEOs do. Like what CEO 100%. Isn't doing interviews, videos? Yeah.
That's the role. Yeah. That's literally the role. You are the face of the company at the end of the day.
So already exposed.
Yep.
Last time we talked, you also talked about oversharing.
Oversharing, yep.
How much of that plays into that reconnaissance?
Oh, a ton of it. Now, so if you go back, so oversharing can take a number of different forms and fashions.
Yeah,
right?
We were talking AI, but
yeah, so we talked about AI, and AI has the ability to go in and look and decipher and be able to kind of create themes out of an aggregate, right? Whereas there are a lot of things as human beings we'll go out and we'll share, and sometimes we'll share accidentally. So everything from typing, like you think you're sending a message to one particular email and you send it to another one, and you can't necessarily recall that unless they're within your organization. Even then, it's semi-limited. But the same thing happens with social media. DMs end up going public, a variety of different things where just an accidental mistype and something that was intended to be private goes public. And I think one thing we've all learned is that once something goes public, especially if you are a public-facing person, it's never gone.
Forever.
It's captured instantly, it's archived, and it will come back to haunt you.
Yeah. There's no world today in which any C-level leader can be invisible from social platforms.
No.
So is there any defense I can do there?
So here's really where that comes into play. right? So I'll actually throw out an example. This happened just over a year ago. Deepfakes were really kind of coming along. Generative AI was, I wouldn't say in its infancy, but it was relatively established. But I think people were still trying to figure out, like, what were the true implications? How could this impact me individually? And there was just an individual, like not even a high-ranking person, working in a finance department for a multinational company. And they get a meeting invite asking them to join with what they thought was their CFO and a series of other executives. And they jump on this video conference call, video, audio, having a conversation with this group of people. And they were basically talking about some type of acquisition or other activity that they're looking to engage in. And this CFO basically, provides direction to this financial operations person to wire $25 million to an external entity. They're on a full-on video conference. They feel like they are looking dead in the eyes of their CFO, their CEO, a series of other executives, potentially board members. And so they carry out the order. Unintentionally sent $25 million to a threat actor group. And it turns out not a single person on that call with him was real.
Wow.
All deep fake. So when it comes back to that question, is how do you protect yourself? It's less about protecting yourself. There's only so much that you can do. By putting that information out there, like, it's going to be out there. Now, there's a lot of different things that can go out. So there's threat intelligence platforms that will go out and be able to look for various and ingest. So it's AI versus AI, right? So you got AI that's able to create these deep fakes based off of the data that's put out there. But in similar fashion, you can combat that with threat intelligence that's able to go out and identify various different content that's being produced by some of these high profile personas within an organization, and identify if messaging is off or if it's not necessarily something that was scheduled as part of a pre-planned type of a production or release or something like that, and being able to flag and kind of take proactive measures to try and remove that or curtail it as best as possible. The more important one is better internal verification processes. So everything from, if you get a sensitive request, what are some ways for you to kind of follow up on it? There should be specific processes, policies, and procedures on how to respond to something like that. And we're getting even into the case of, like, even a password reset. So we're talking about a request to wire $25 million. Like, that's a pretty extreme case, right? Even just something as simple as resetting a password. Like, are you going to, like a support desk technician, that call comes in, that should trigger some type of heightened verification protocols where you go through and do some type of real-time validation that the person on the other end of that call is actually the identity that's calling in and asking for the password reset. So it's less that, so there are some things you can do to try and monitor and manage for, we'll call it identity hijacking that's happening out there, and there's just the general digital space. But really what it comes back to is good, solid identity verification procedures internally. So being suspicious of joining video conferencing communications or video conferencing bridges and meetings that are outside your company's normal platform of choice, right? Looking at email addresses, making sure that they match up, all that kind of stuff. So just little checks and balances for, like, if you see something, say something, this feels a little bit off. I know that it involves my CFO. Yeah. And even in that use case that I shared with you, the individual kind of called out that, they started to feel a little uncomfortable during some of this, but they used the right language. Like, that's the other thing. A lot of these threat actors, they like to use, for all intents and pressure and kind of fear tactics in order to get people to respond. Nobody wants to be in trouble, especially when you're talking to what you think is a senior executive or could be a senior executive. And so people respond differently to that. And so they use those types of tactics. So even if you feel uncomfortable, that gets outweighed by potential risk of employment and things like that.
Yeah.
So, yep.
We're going to come back to that when we're playing the recovery game. But before we move on to the next move, you've already mentioned that you're scanning social platforms, the obvious places, maybe video interviews, podcasts, etc. Before we move on, is there any other maybe less obvious place where some of that sensitive or overshared information can be found and scraped?
All right. This is going to seem a little weird.
Okay.
So go with me on the ride.
Lay it on me.
Dating apps.
I'm sorry, what?
Dating apps. So think about that. The whole intent is to go on to connect with other people, to share information, to probably try and impress them to a certain extent. And so when you think about deep fakes and phishing, catfishing has been around for ages.
Yeah.
It's had different purposes. But think about, you go out, do a little bit of searching, you find some executives, you go out, you look at specific dating apps, you kind of pull that up, you go through, just do some searches, see if they're out there. In fact, there's like AI apps that will go out and search for specific personas on the dating apps. And then you go out, you create a good profile, and you just start doing a little fishing.
Interesting. We're going to protect the innocent, but have you actually seen that play out?
I have not.
Okay.
I have
but
not.
You know it's out
I've
there.
not seen it personally. There have been records of it, but I have not.
Wow. Okay. All right. You've got my name. You've got my personality, essentially, the way that I speak, the people that I engage with. You know about my company. So you've got your recon. Now what?
So once you've identified your targets, the next place to go, to be just very honest, is the simplest path. Like, we always want to go, just like everybody, people looking to do these types of nefarious things want to follow the shortest and
make
easiest
it
path,
easy.
right? Path of least resistance.
We don't make it that hard.
So if you think about it, you go out, and if you're managing passwords, okay? So you live in this digital world, and you have a password, right? And
for everything.
you log into about like 9 million different websites every single day.
Yep.
Most of them, what's your user ID now by default?
Oh, usually my email.
Your email address, right? Guess what? It's pretty uniform.
Yep.
How often do people reuse passwords?
Probably a lot, or variations of the same password.
almost exclusively, I would say. People tend to reuse passwords. So one of the things that you do is you go out and you find this persona. Credentials are super cheap on the dark web. So you go out and you just do a little bit of searching to see if you can find email, password combinations. And then you start using that as a way to potentially insert yourself into email communications. By far, one of the most frequent entry points for threat actors, because it's asynchronous. There's a massive, we all get buried under mountains of emails, so it's easy for things to potentially go unnoticed.
Yep.
It's also pretty easy to clean up after yourselves, so if you don't necessarily want traces of those emails being left around. And so going out, looking to see what can you get off the dark web to help you kind of advance, like what's for sale. And so you use that as kind of like that next kind of, we'll call it phase 1.5 of reconnaissance, right?
Okay.
So once you've kind of built your picture, you understand who your target is, you understand who you're going to leverage to get yourself in, then you go out and you just see what's available to me. So there's a couple of different styles of trying to come in.
I got my iPhone. Kudos to iPhone.
Okay.
It's got my passwords.
Yep.
And it's got my notification that hey, your password's shown up in a leak. I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yep.
Right. I've missed that, right? So now you've got my password. Yep. You bought it off the dark web. Now you've got access to my email. You're probably logging into stuff and changing passwords without me even realizing it, because you're deleting the emails that come through with the password reset.
So chances are you're not doing that yet.
Okay.
You don't want to do that yet.
Okay.
Because that exposes you.
Oh.
The whole intent is you want to operate as long as possible undetected.
Okay.
You don't want to expose your hand until it's go time.
Okay.
So it's just like the heist movies, right? You always want to play it cool. Like, though, maybe there's a few little signs here and there, they get dismissed, but at the end of the day, you want to go undetected as long as humanly possible.
Yeah. Are there any red flags that I might catch at this point?
So there's a lot of different tools. There's a lot of different things that can kind of be used. Now, you as an end user, you may not, to be honest with you.
I mean, it did tell me that my password had been leaked.
Now, that would be that would actually be a phenomenal sign and probably a reason for response and for you to take some remediative action. But as far as just general detection, it's very, very challenging.
Okay.
And so typically what we do is we have to come back to, again, looking at things in the aggregate. And so when we talk about various different technologies that are out there, collecting log data, analyzing various different activities, and then correlating it across different aspects of your IT environment, and then mapping it to behavioral analytics. So looking at, hey, is it normal for Jillian to be logging into her email at 2:00 in the morning from China?
Maybe.
That's
Maybe not from
probably,
China.
but we also call it the impossible travel situation, right?
Yeah.
So if you are in China at 2:00 in the morning and then at 6:00 in the morning you log in from Phoenix, right? There's no flight on Earth that's going to get you from China to Phoenix
And we have
in
systems
4
now
hours.
that can detect this.
100%. So that's where the behavioral analytics come in. So again, for you as an individual, again, especially using some of these more traditional communication platforms, it's really easy for these threat actors to cover their tracks. And so it's pretty challenging. Now, what could happen is, if they'll probably start off just monitoring. And again, consuming, looking, identifying other people that they might want to communicate with, who are other folks that might allow them to pivot and go into other places within the organization. Or maybe it's just a quick smash and grab. Like I've seen that before too, where they'll come in, they'll take I've seen a situation where they were able to compromise the CEO's credentials, logged into his email box, literally sent an email to his EA asking for a $6,000 in gift cards, and had them just
do it.
Transmitted.
Yeah,
right.
That's all they were after.
So, and it was $6,000, smash grab, out they go. And that was it. And so they obviously, unfortunately, this executive assistant carried it out.
Yeah.
It came from the CEO's inbox.
Yeah.
Had no reason to believe this wasn't an authentic request. So made the purchases, sent them where they were asked to be sent. By the way, it wasn't like she shipped them to China. It was just right down the road to a warehouse that grabbed them, distributed them, and did what they do with those types of assets.
It might have been weird for the amount and the urgency, but everything 100%. Else
and
looked
exactly had the urgency, but everything else looked good.
Yeah.
And then obviously they detected something was wrong. They went in, did password resets. This was a catalyst for implementing multi-factor authentication, as you can imagine, but you still have to go through and do forensics to see if anything else was done, right? Was any other data exfiltrated and things of that nature? So,
but $6,000 is a fair price
it's
to
a
pay
decent amount
to recognize.
100%. In fact, they got off pretty easy.
Yeah.
I mean, had this particular whether individual or group, not exactly sure what it was, but had they recognized what they had access to, if they would have been a little bit more patient, they probably could have gotten away with a lot more.
The lurking is the piece that's giving me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it should.
Yeah.
It's giving you the heebie-jeebies for the right reason.
Yeah.
Because we don't like to be spied on. Nobody likes to be spied on. Especially don't like to be spied on with the intent of they're going to carry out some type of malicious act against you. Like, that's terrible. That's a terrible feeling.
I mean, I can't think of a positive reason why I'd want to be spied on, but yeah. All right. So you've got my information. You've got some passwords. Step 3 is what?
So it depends on, obviously there's a number of different attacks that we talked about, right? So it really comes down to what's the best way, what's your path to the biggest payout?
Okay.
That's really what it comes down to, is path of least resistance, biggest payout.
Unless, of course, you just want $6,000 gift cards.
$6,000 in gift cards. Yeah. I mean, for some of these,
that's a win.
For some of these scammers, like that's a relatively good payout,
and
right?
They're just testing the waters.
Nothing near a $25 million payout for a deep fake phone call with some executives, but $6,000. So it really comes down to what is it they're trying to carry out. So the big one these days is ransomware. So one thing we didn't necessarily touch on, we've talked a lot about the social aspects of this, and I think that's one of the biggest areas, right? It really is.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. We call a spade, so we know there's vulnerabilities in all the different technology that we use. But at the end of the day, it's a well-known fact, the human beings that use those systems are the weakest link in the chain.
We are quite flawed.
The weakest link every single time. And there's a lot of different reasons. So I'll throw out one other negative use case.
Okay.
And it really comes down to insider threat. Is when you look at just general employee sentiment and where we're at right now, both economically, geopolitically, there's a lot of just unrest. There's a lot of, employees who aren't necessarily particularly thrilled with some of the directions and things that are happening within, I'll speak predominantly around like the corporate America space. And so a lot of them, that loyalty, that allegiance is relatively low. And so another thing that we're seeing a fairly significant rise in is that these threat actors are basically either straight up intimidating or even bribing employees to basically hand over their credentials and to kind of just open the door and step aside, right? So I think about so you talked about thrillers. Again, I'm a big comedy guy, but I do like action movies. And in fact, like John Wick is one of my favorites.
Okay.
And I always think about that scene where he's going into the nightclub and he walks up to the big bodyguard and he obviously threatens him there, and basically makes it known that he's going in whether he wants him to or not. So he can either suffer the consequences of trying to block him, or he could just let him pass.
Yeah.
What does he choose?
Most employees are just going to let him
in.
Yeah.
Just let him in.
Yeah.
And by the way, a lot of these tactics these threat actors use, it's not just simple. Like, they literally threaten family members. And so it's pretty scary, right? The tactics they'll use. So you can't necessarily blame somebody. Like, if they're coming in, they're threatening your family, your livelihood, all they want is your credentials.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the same philosophy of a police officer would tell you if you ever get mugged on the street, like all you do, throw your bag, put your hands down, whatever it is that you had can be recovered.
Walk away.
Your life's not worth it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's a real threat as well. So when you think about those various different entry points, so again, coming back to, we've talked a lot about the people aspect, and I think that's going to be the most primary entry point that you'll see from the various different bad actors that are out there. The other piece is we haven't talked about like the brute force entry through gaps in our overall technology that are intended to protect us, or what else, or even help us conduct business, that we have to permit some level of data exchange to happen, but it inevitably allows, we create holes in our security perimeter specifically to allow these things through. And so those technologies will have flaws. Those flaws can be exploited, and then that can be used as another means to be able to infiltrate an organization. And we've seen that happen as well. And so the other piece is the vulnerability management, continuous detection, good security perimeter, identity, best practices, things of that nature. So coming back to what's next, right? So we're going to go down the path of, we'll go ransomware, right? Ransomware is a pretty common thing these days. We're going to stay on the path of, because we could go in lots of different directions, we'll stay on the path of the user. So we basically get access, we profile an individual user, and really what the intent is there is that they use those credentials to either drop something into like a shared storage space, or to send them an email, or create some type of way of delivering a malicious package of software to them. Like that's really what the aim is. Once they actually have that endpoint, that desktop is the number one. It's basically patient zero. If you were to think about like some type of a viral outbreak or something like that.
So if you're sending me something, you're not going to send something to me from me. So how would you get that packet to my computer?
So the whole intent would be not necessarily to send it as you to you. It would be to use, to profile you as an individual, to craft a message that you would then send to that mailbox that would incite you to actually opening it up.
Okay.
Like sending it from another trusted entity, because usually you're not just going to take one mailbox. You're going to have multiple mailboxes. And so you'll start off, you'll kind of figure out like what your attack approach is going to be, and then you'll log in as one account, you'll craft a message that will be received by the other person that will incite them to open whatever attachment that you send them. You put or maybe it's even a link. It may not even be an attachment. It could just be a link of, hey, we're going to be transitioning to this new financial form. Here's a new link. Go out, download it from this website. I need a copy of this like as soon as possible. If you could get this onto my desk by the end of the day, that'd be awesome. Send it to that person. They get it, they click the link, they download what they think is just a financial processing form, they open it, and it ends up being an actual malware package.
What I'm picking up on are a couple of like psychological ways that we ourselves are vulnerable. You kind of hit on earlier with like the dating profile phishing, so it's definitely our vanity.
Oh yeah,
creating that weakness.
I think fear is the bigger one.
Fear is the bigger one.
If I can be honest, yeah.
But the one that you just said is really targeting more of like the rule follower. There's a sense of urgency here. We know urgency is a big one.
Urgency is always at play.
Is there another psychological approach that maybe we don't think of that we should be aware of?
I love that you put it. It is psychological, because it really just comes down to the human nature, right? So
emotional
things
trigger.
that trigger high emotions that allow us to act without necessarily a lot of cognitive processing to think, is this right? Right? Like you either are afraid of the outcome or you're excited about the outcome. And so you're going to make a choice, instinctive choice, to do something to get to whatever that outcome is, either to avert it as a risk or a threat, or to get you there faster because it's something that's going to bring you joy.
Yeah.
So it's very psychological.
Yeah, and I think that's important to point out, because I feel like when we hear these stories in the news about the CEO, the financial officer, whoever it was that fell for a scheme, it's really easy to watch that story unfold and be like, how did they not know that that was a phishing attempt? But it's so different when you're in the moment.
It really is. It really is. And there's just, especially when you work in a role like I do, and a lot of the other people that I tend to connect with, is that we're not very trusting people. I know it seems weird, especially like I come off as a very, trusting and open person. Deep down, like
trust no one.
You're just constantly questioning everything.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's, for us in the security industry, like that's just kind of part of the game, right? Like this is just who we are as people. But there's other people that aren't like that. Right. And so they tend to trust first and learn from the mistakes after. Right.
Well, I appreciate that's why our team does a really good job of doing like the fake phishing attempt emails, because it will catch you when you're just in your normal workflow. You've got 100 other things you're trying to get done. You're task switching, so you're not paying fully attention. Then that email comes in with something you urgently have to do, or here's a gift card. And it's like, I appreciate that our emails have that little flag at the top.
I love that, like, external email.
External email.
I love it.
Yeah, because
I'm a fan.
There's been a couple of times where it's supposedly from someone at Insight.
Yep.
Like, nope.
So I will be vulnerable here with our Insight on Friends.
Ooh.
I got nabbed once. They've gotten me one time. Over the 12 years that I've been here with Insight, they got me one time, and they did exactly what a threat actor would do. They learn my behaviors and they understand, like, where do I see urgency and what will drive me to maybe click or do something that I ordinarily wouldn't do. And so, working for an organization like ours, you recognize that there are ebbs and flows to the business. And usually, this isn't a big surprise to anybody, month end, quarter end are high intensity moments, right? And one of the things that I do a lot in my role is I process contracts. And so, we use a digital signing platform for that. And it was at the end of the month, end of a quarter, and I get one of our, fake phishing, educational phishing emails, and it looked like a document signing request. And because of the date, the time, I was really trying to make sure that we stayed on top of these things because timing is extremely sensitive and important.
Yeah.
I went to, and as I was hovering over and going to click it, I literally was clicking it as I saw the little thing pop up with the URL that it was taking me to, and I saw that it wasn't our document signing platform, and I knew within that
motion.
100%. Like, we're literally talking like microseconds, milliseconds, whatever it was. I knew I'd been nabbed. And as soon as it popped up the screen, I get another email letting me know that I had been generously enrolled in our cybersecurity training program. Oh, it was so embarrassing, but I have vowed ever since that moment, I will never get caught again.
Yeah. What did you learn? How do you prevent that from happening again?
So and now every single time I get so I would never click a link without just double checking that URL first to make sure that it's taking me exactly where I expect it to go.
The mouse hover.
Yep. And even then, it's an external, so I can't necessarily use the banner to say, oh, this is coming from an external source, but I slow myself down. And so that was my big lesson learned, was I allowed myself to get anxious. I allowed myself to get pulled into the emotion, and I stopped doing best practices because I felt like the immediacy of a response was more important than me being safe. And so now I really force myself not to let that happen anymore.
Yeah. You're like, Joy, sorry those contracts are late, but I was being vigilant.
There you go.
All right. We're getting close to the end.
Yep.
In the sense that you're getting closer and closer to the crown jewels here.
Yep.
We talked
the
about
safe.
The safe. That's right.
In Ocean's 11, if you will.
You are in the facilities. You're doing your social engineering. You've dropped the packet with a horrible ransomware.
Yep.
But you're still undetected. So what's happening now?
So the big thing is that once you land on that one endpoint, your job is to spread. Now, you have to be very careful. You don't necessarily want to spread everywhere, depending on the actual attack that you're trying to carry out. You want to be very targeted in what you're going after. So what you do is you usually land and you do a series of scans to try and either collect more account information, to do a scan of what their infrastructure looks like, understanding what the various different systems, patch levels, basically going through, and the same thing that we do on the good guy side of this. We're going through, we're scanning, we're looking for patches, we're making sure that vulnerabilities are managed, we're making sure that firewalls are on, that they've got endpoint protection enabled, all these good things, right?
How long does that take?
Not as long as you would expect.
That's what I thought. I thought
So,
you were going to say that.
I mean, we've seen some that go from literally point of entry to full encryption of an IT environment in less than 28 days. Pretty scary.
Yeah.
So, but that's 28 days of being undetected. So there's a lot of other challenges there. So when we talk about like some of the things we can do to mitigate and protect, there's a lot of, everything from endpoint detection to SIM SOAR, data collection, log analytics, all that, having a good vigilant SOC team that's 24/7. There's a lot of things that we can do to protect that. But in these instances, they've kind of gone past those defenses, or those defenses don't exist. And so what they do is they scan, they look for other vulnerable areas, but then they look for vulnerable areas that are high value. And so what they do is once they find those, then they use the access that they do have to then drop another package further and deeper into the environment with the intent of getting to data. At the end of the day, data is what it's all about. If you can take the data away, the data is what makes the company run. It's what makes applications function. And so if you rip that out from underneath everything, the whole house of cards falls down. And that creates another level of desperation and panic and financial impact. And that's what gets people to pay. And so that's really what you're looking to do at that point is you're trying to look for those soft areas that have high impact and have access to highly sensitive data. And you get your way deeper and deeper until you have either the entire IT environment or some of their most critical systems and data sets identified. And then you use that and then you basically load that ransomware package, you detonate it, you initiate an encryption event, and you lock them out.
Checkmate.
Hopefully not. So one of the other things to always consider is that one of the most important things that these threat actors will look for isn't necessarily just the live data. The live data is extremely important, but that's usually the second attack. You want to make sure that you're identifying what their data protection strategy is, because if it's too easy to recover, they're not going to pay, right? So there's still the activity of identifying them and expelling them from the environment, but being able to recover their data too efficiently and too effectively is bad for them. So what you want to do is you also want to make sure that you're identifying the data protection platforms, seeing what you have access to, how far back does it go. That way you understand your data gap, and that data gap, like what is the value of that data gap to an organization. So you usually want to target data protection first, then you go to live data, and you leave them in a situation where they can't easily recover, and the only option that they have is to negotiate with you.
I have so many questions about that. We're going to get that once we get into the war room,
Okay.
I think. But are we there yet? Are we at the point?
We are now at.
How do I know?
We're now in the blast zone. So we are now fully encrypted. Operations are down. People aren't doing their jobs.
So I, as a CEO, know that there's something bad going on because I'm not
Something
getting
bad
my
is happening.
email, data's down, something. So
Correct.
Okay. Terrified.
Yep. Appropriately
I'm
so.
panicking. I don't want to be the next headline, Jeremy.
No.
So.
Well, you are now. Based off of our scenario, you're on the brink of a headline.
All right. So Jeremy, we're pretty far into this thing. It's been a journey. Just briefly walk us back through again. What were those key steps that are happening before we even realize anything's going down?
So let's walk it through the various different phases. Step 1 is reconnaissance, identifying, understanding your target. Going out, collecting information. Step 2 is understanding where you have vulnerabilities, whether that's people, whether that's technology. You're going to do that various different levels of scans and understanding. It's just that next evolution of reconnaissance. The next step that you want to take is that initial entry point, that initial basically penetration into their environment, whatever that attack mean might look like. But with the express intent, and again, we're talking about this through the lens of ransomware. Once we've actually been able to land inside their environment, it's all about lateral movement. You want to scan, you want to identify the most valuable targets within their environment with the intent of getting as close to the data as possible, recognizing that number 1 target is data protection, number 2 is live data. Once we know that we've got that, we understand their ability to respond, then it's time to detonate. And that's when we go offline.
I'm picturing Ocean's 11. Brad Pitt just finished his hot dog.
That's right.
He's throwing it in. The team is getting ready. They're doing their thing. It's game on.
That's right. Now we're standing inside the room. We're looking at the monitors of the vault. We're picking up the phone, and we're calling the SWAT team.
And with that, to be continued. We're going to have to come back together and meet up in the war room. That'll be our next episode, Jeremy. I'm excited to have you back because I'm terrified. This is getting scary.
That's where the bad can turn into good. I think that's the best part about the next time that we get together is that we talked about all the scary parts. Now we get to talk about like ways to prepare, and it's all about recovery. So it's hard, it's dark, it's scary, but at the same time, there's that pinprick of light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that's what's exciting to talk about.
All right, you're going to hold my hand out of this haunted house. We're going to make it through.
We're going to get out together.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Insight On. If today's conversation sparked an idea or raised a challenge you're facing, head to insight.com. You'll find the resources, case studies, and real-world solutions to help you lead with clarity. If you found this episode to be helpful, be sure to follow Insight On, leave a review, and share it with a colleague. It's how we grow the conversation and help more leaders make better tech decisions. Discover more at insight.com. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are of those of the host and the guests and do not necessarily reflect on the official policy or position of Insight or its affiliates. This content is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional or legal advice.